And we're live. Hello, everybody. First of all, I'm using a new mic, as you can see. Is that called the lapel mic? What's that called? Anyways, let me know how the audio sounds because it's the first time testing it out. Last week we got a new video setup. This week a new audio setup. Slowly but surely. So, Yahya Sinwar has been killed. To those mourning his death, I'm sorry for your loss. For those celebrating his death, congratulations. What does this mean for the situation in Gaza? Well, first, just a little bit about what we know about his death so far. He was killed last night I see Eric is saying Mazal Tov. Yeah, feel free to let us know in the chat if this excites you, if you're sad about this, if you're indifferent. So he was killed last night in a firefight in Gaza. It seems like it was just a run-in with him and two of his bodyguards. There wasn't any intel that he was there. This happened in Rafah, a city in southern Gaza. So he was not underground with a suicide vest like many assumed. He was vested up with a gun, looking to fight. Now, where did Shael? Shael actually broke it down. Shael always has good commentary. Those who don't know, definitely follow him. But he gave a little report on from what at least is being stated from Israel. So the IDF is now releasing classified information about the hunt for Sinwar. The 6 hostages who were executed, including Hirsch, were the ones used as a human shield by Sinwar for months. After the rescue of Farhan al-Qadi, the Hamas leader left the tunnel where the hostages were being kept. Their physical condition no longer allowed them to be moved around, meaning, I think he means the physical condition of the hostages deteriorated, and Sinwar believed his best chance was to move swiftly from place to place. Not long after, Hamas executed them when the IDF was getting close. The destruction of much of the tunnel system also meant he had to hide above ground. In sum, it is relentless pressure from IDF that flushed Sinwar out. This is his analysis based on what he's hearing from his friends in the IDF. Again, we don't know all the details, but this is at least how it's being spoken of on the Israeli side. Now, what does this actually mean for Gaza? No, Eric, I think Hamas executed the hostages shortly after Sinwar left them. So up until it was around a month ago, the 6 hostages were executed as the IDF were getting closer. Supposedly, those were the 6 that were surrounded by Sinwar. Again, this is Israel reporting on it, so we don't have full confirmation, but this is what it seems to be the case. They were already moving around with the hostages was slowing them down. Supposedly, their physical condition deteriorated, and we do have some more info on that because, like, one of the girls who was found, Hadass, she was she was like under 100 pounds when they found her, so clearly not in good physical condition. So he decided that he's not going to be traveling with hostages anymore. He will be on his own. So it was an unexpected encounter with one of the IDF brigades, and today he was confirmed dead. Now, what does this actually mean? A few things. It could mean nothing besides a good moral victory for Israel and a moral defeat for Hamas and anybody who supports them. But it very well may mean that the operation in Gaza continues. If we look at Netanyahu's stated goals, it is not to kill Sinwar. It is to make sure Hamas cannot govern Gaza again, as well as to release the hostages. Now, is it possible that Sinwar being killed will make it easier to negotiate some kind of a deal to get the hostages back? Potentially. So it is possible that on one hand, Sinwar being killed might not change anything, because Netanyahu's demands, again, are that either Hamas surrender or that the operation will continue. It's unclear that with Sinwar gone, they will agree to surrender. And if Netanyahu doesn't budge on his request, then the operation will continue. That being said, it is possible that this will cause Netanyahu to It gives him a good off-ramp. It allows him to end this operation with victory. We got Dave, we got Sinwar, we got X amount of hostages back. He could frame this as a victory, even though Hamas will remain in power, right? So one option is there is no change. Another option is this gives Netanyahu more room to compromise. It could also make Hamas a little bit more lenient on their negotiation, leading to an end of this round of violence. Asaf says morale. Yeah, I think you could say moral victory as well. I think I actually reflected on that. I'm not sure I was incorrect with my English. I said a good moral victory, but he says morale. But you could check me on that. Now, again, it will take days to weeks to really see how this changes anything on the ground. In terms of new leadership, Khalid Mashal, the past leader of Gaza, of Hamas. Now, you have the Hamas political wing and the military wing. Generally, these had different leaderships. They up until Hanei was assassinated in Iran, he was the head of the political leadership, while Sinwar was the head of the military leadership. Once Hanei was assassinated, many speculated that Khalid Mashal, who is the previous leader before Hanei, that he would be the new leader. They ended up giving leadership of the political wing to Sinwar, which was quite unprecedented. So that kind of made him the leader of all of Hamas. Now there is speculation that it might go back to Mashal. Now, does this actually change anything? It might, every leader, a new opportunity. I have heard that the difference between Hanei and Mashal is that Hanei was more pro-Iran, while Mashal wanted to build coalitions with other Sunni groups, right? One of the interesting things between the Iranian and Hamas coalition is that this is a Shia-Sunni coalition, which is quite rare. And from what I understood, Mashal was looking for more friends in the Sunni world. So are we talking about Saudi Arabia, UAE? Which countries are we talking about? These are countries that are warming up or have warmed up to Israel. So is this an opportunity for a reformation of Hamas? Many people think that this is impossible. For those who watch this, I think it certainly is possible. Is it likely? I'm not sure. But a new leader is a new opportunity. Tikkun Olam Isaac Lev seems to think it's the same thing at the end. Is that in reference to who the leader is? Because I think that's not an unpopular opinion, to say the least. Hubert is asking, but how does this affect LeBron's legacy? It's a good question. I'd still probably put him as number 2 after Jordan for GOAT, but who knows? Leadership will likely defer to those in Qatar, either those closer to Iran and are those closer to Qatar like Mashal. Sinwar brother is also still in Gaza. Sinwar's brother is still in Gaza. That's true. Eric goes, the leadership in Qatar won't be able to control the military Hamas forces in Gaza. By the way, after past live stream, somebody gave me feedback that I sometimes read the comments in a way that's unclear and don't bring them up to screen. So thank you for that feedback, because I'm now making more of an effort. And the reason I say this is because I love when I get feedback from people. It helps me improve these streams. Sometimes people just call me a capo or something like that. I don't take that to heart, but actual constructive feedback I love. Let's see. So yeah, Tikkun Olam, Isaac Lev goes, the political and military wing of Hamas are the same at the end of the day. They want to destroy us. I don't think it's as like monolithic. as that. Like I think that there is variation from person to person. There's nothing in the DNA of these leaders that is um, the doctrine of Hamas, right? It's not part of their DNA. These are individuals that have beliefs. They have values. They can be pressured. Their minds can be changed. Um, they have different incentives and considerations. So I, I think we shouldn't see this as just one monolith where they're all the same and um, they're impossible. They're impossible to change or reform. I'm not sure that's the best way to look at it. Should we turn this into a call-in show? Maybe drop a link, see who wants to come on, have some fun with it. I'm down for that. Drop in a link, whoever wants to join. Asaf Nahum goes, maybe this will. Nahum goes, maybe a paradigm shift and realization that force won't work. That'd be cool. I think that I would like to see a situation where once the dust settles, we're not in a worse state than we were, right? Just the amount of bloodshed we've seen the past year, for that to all be in vain and not really have accomplished anything, will just make the loss of life even harder to stomach. No matter what, it's a tragic loss of life. But if we can get to the other side of this and have a status quo that is preferred to where we were before, then at least those who lost their life didn't lose it for no reason. Again, this obviously doesn't make it easier for the families of those that lost their lives. This doesn't bring them back from the death, but it does make it easier to comprehend. Critical thinking over doctrine goes, do we know what Gazans want? For my conversations with Gazans, I hear pretty consistently that they are open to many solutions. They just want the status quo to change. They're not as determined to liberate the entire land like Hamas is. They are willing to compromise. They're just tired of the situation and want to see some change. This I've heard pretty consistently. Dude, I can't even hear your Hebrew accent. You're saying when I speak Hebrew, you don't hear that I have an American accent, or you don't hear what, or when I speak English, you don't hear an Israeli accent. What do you mean by that, Eric? But I'll clarify. I mean, I lived in the United States from the age of 0 to 18, aside from second grade when I lived in Israel, and then from Israel from age 18 to 32. And then 2 years ago, for the most of the past 2 years, I've been in LA building this new company. So my English is very American. Some would even say it has a little, I don't know if it has any East Coast accent, but that's where I grew up. My Hebrew, while fluent, I do have an American accent. Or I do have an accent. Some say it's not quite American, but I have an accent when I speak Hebrew. MK Matt hitting us with these hard-hitting questions. If you were Israeli PM, what would your immediate goals be? Looking for an idealistic answer and realistic answer in terms of what would actually be feasible. So there's part of this hypothetical that impacts the feasibility, because with this current government, when in coalition with far-right members of cabinet, there's not much feasibility without the coalition breaking down. But if we were to have a slightly more moderate coalition, then the feasibility increases quite drastically. But I think we need to come forward with some kind of a proposal, call it a 10-year path to peace, where there's different milestones that where both sides are meant to hit. Right? Oslo did something similar. It was meant to be a multi-step process that just broke down pretty quickly. Now, what's the other side of this plan? Is it a Palestinian state, or is it the formation of a federation? I'm open to both, but we need a plan that inspires hope in the people of both sides. The level of despair we have is what pushes people towards violence, when you have nothing to look for and nothing to hope for. So a plan really is just for both sides, that speaks to the desires of both people: security for Jews, justice for Palestinians. Obviously, there are other desires, but if I'm general, these are the big ones. Multi-step process could be, on day one, we denounce. Let's take a two-state scenario, or maybe a confederation. But we can say on day one, we have mutual recognition of the other's right to self-determine on their ancestral homeland, and we both denounce violence. Great first step. A good faith measure Israel can do would be to release prisoners that haven't been charged with a crime, any minors especially. Something the Palestinian Authority could do is stop the pay-to-slay policy, so terrorists no longer get money, or their families no longer get money for carrying out terrorist attacks. In turn, Israel can also do something along the lines of stop demolishing the homes of terrorists. Israel then needs to really rein in this lawlessness we're seeing in the West Bank with settlers. A settler that acts violently towards Palestinians should be treated the same way a Palestinian is when they're violent towards Israelis. They should be treated equally. We could then start to build, call them reconciliation programs, whether this is days where Israelis and Palestinians are meeting for dialogue, for conversation, potentially even for sports. We should try to build a shared culture around music and entertainment. I don't know, these sound pretty sensible things. And notice none of what I said, it's often said the peace process will put us in danger. But nothing I said is actually taking away, putting us in more danger. It's just to bring it closer to the peaceful resolution. And one is really having a goal to aim towards. Like right now, there's literally no plan. It's just, let's maintain the status quo for eternity. That's really the right way to go about it. Another is to really reform the security apparatus in the West Bank. That's not just Israelis, but that's an Israeli-Palestinian force. They're held a very high standard of how they treat people living in the West Bank. We need to create a situation where, because right now Jews view that force as protector, while Palestinians view it as an oppressor. That force needs to be seen as a protector of both people. Yeah, that's what's going to mind now. Feel free to push back and add things, right? Like something I think connection is unstable. It might come through clearly for you all. Hold on a second. I always say this whenever we talk about solutions. I'm literally just one dude. Imagine if we put together an actual group of people, like a collective of people, of experts working toward building this plan. We could come up with much more comprehensive and thorough things than I'm kind of freestyling right now on a live stream. But just the fact that, I could do this just shows how little we're actually talking about it. Because these are all ideas that, I don't want to call them novel, but they're not part of our conversation. They're not part of the collective consciousness of the Israeli people of what can be done. So what I'm trying to demonstrate here is just there's a lack of desire, will, and even creativity as to what we can do to move forward. And the status quo is not in anybody's favor. It's not good for Israelis. It's not good for Palestinians. Okay, I'm looking at the quality now. It's okay, a little fuzzy, but not the end of the world. Isaac, no one's deleting comments. No, why? What happened? Did you lose something? Sometimes I know I don't know about this in chat, but in the comment section, the YouTube algorithm, is very strict and will just erase comments without even letting people know. It's quite authoritarian. Even it picks up on keywords, and if there's a keyword it doesn't like, you don't even see that your comment doesn't post it. You think you posted it, and it's gone. So I'm constantly getting accused of deleting comments, but I don't delete a comment. Sometimes if somebody's being an asshole in chat, I'll put them in a timeout. It's blocked for like 5 minutes. But it's possible the algorithm's working in on the chat as well, not just comments. Okay, I'm hearing the audio's a little choppy, and that sounds like it's stuttering. Oh no. Well, that sucks. It's back. Good. Hubert is why did I serve in the IDF when I was born in the United States? That's a good question. I didn't have to. Still getting this unstable connection. Hold on, guys. I'm kidding. Technology, huh? You would think. 2024. Going on 2025. Can't get connections. Test. Hold on one second. I'm gonna check the speed real quick, and then we're gonna decide. We're gonna see what's up. Maybe I switch it to. It's actually stuttering again. Well, fantastic download speed, but what matters is that upload speed. Okay, I could be quarantined illegal shit all day. Did you know? You remember back in the day when downloading movies on torrents was super popular? They have like it was like 2 years ago in Denver. I had an Airbnb and I rented something, and literally I got a message from the Airbnb that she got a message from the internet service provider that we're using illegal torrent downloads, and she was pretty pissed. So yeah, I think you can use a VPN these days. It's not the wild wild west like it used to be. Not my upload speed is good enough. Okay, anyways, we're gonna continue the stream. I hope it's a good guy. So somebody asked why Hubert asked why I served in the IDF. Well, I grew up to an Israeli father who was ninth generation Israeli. Right, we moved to the land in 1812 from Vilna, Lithuania. So these very deep Zionist teachings. My father served, my uncle served, my grandfather served. My grandfather on my mom's side, who's American, served in the 48 war. So it was always in my head from a young age that when you turn 18, joining the IDF is what you do, regardless of the fact that I was growing up in the US. So there's always an option. It's always something I considered doing. And then in high school, I was a very big troublemaker. I don't know if this comes as a surprise to some of you or it's expected, but I was a very big troublemaker. And I didn't think college would be good for me in the state I was in. So to me, that was just like, okay, the IDF will straighten me up, help me grow. So yeah, at age 18, I packed in my bags, did 3 years in the IDF. I served in Golani. And then it was around 3 years after getting released from the IDF that I started seeing things differently. And started getting involved in different peace building initiatives. And look, the IDF, it's controversial. Like on one hand, the IDF is essential for the security of the Jewish people living on the land. On the other hand, it causes immense harm to the Palestinians. So it's a complicated one, to say the least. Yeah, Floodland, this is a new mic. Is the audio coming in clearer, or is it possible that this is what's causing the issues? Let me know if the audio continues, and maybe we'll revert back to the old one. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see. MK Mac goes, you should maybe try to partner with some well-known activists like Rudy to start building the narrative of achieving realistic goals to bring the sides together. Yeah, that'd be a cool project. I don't have enough time to take on a project like that quite yet, but I just started a new company which we believe can scale contentious conversations. So I've spoken about it a few times on stream. I'll make a public announcement about it soon enough. Ibn Saifi goes, Yahya Sinwar was born in a refugee camp to refugees from Ashkelon, who's a product of a situation that Israel created. He represents much more than himself. He represents resistance to the occupation. I would say that's true. People want to know what kind of trouble I made. So first of all, I was just using drugs and alcohol. I was getting drunk every weekend for junior and senior year, and then I was already using hard drugs senior year, which I know is quite young to start. So there was substance abuse, and then they used to call me Adar Nation. That was my alter ego. I started a rebellion against the school administration. I would get up on tables at lunch and make these speeches and get people riled up. I even caused a minor food fight at one point. Yeah, for some, Adar Nation became a thing. They used to do these Adar Nation chants at parties. It'd be Adar Nation, Adar Nation. I don't know why, but it became a thing. They even chanted it at one hockey game. I wasn't even on the hockey team. But for the last 2 months of school, I wasn't allowed to eat lunch in the cafeteria, and their reason was I'm a threat to public safety, not because I was violent in any way, but just because I would get people riled up around some shit. The rebellion I did started when they changed some school policies to not let us leave the building during the day and some other stuff. So I took a stand against that. Yeah, they didn't let me walk at my high school graduation. Interestingly, though, this is one of the highlights of high school. So the principal told my mom that if I show up to graduation, I'll get a police escort off the premises because they thought I'd come to try to pull some shenanigans. And so my mom took me out to a nice dinner just so I wouldn't be sad that I wasn't walking in graduation. And then I start getting messages from my friends saying that I was mentioned and that I need to make an appearance. I didn't make an appearance, but what happened was the class president actually mentioned Adar Nation in her speech. She didn't refer to me as a person. She's like, wherever you are in 10 years, whether you're a doctor in some hospital or living on that island of Adar Nation, it was kind of like an acknowledgement, which I very much appreciated. Shout out to Krista Basile. She's the one who did it. I don't imagine she's watching the stream, but that was kind of cool. Okay. So Isaac, you're saying like, don't Gazans need to be re-educated if we are ever to live in peace, and then comparing it to, you're saying denazification. No, I'm not. I'm not at all convinced that is a requirement. I think when you change somebody's conditions, I think they're capable of changing quite quickly. From what I've gathered through the years doing this work and just through living life is generally people's beliefs are not as deep rooted as one would think. They we change our minds quicker than we like to acknowledge, and public opinion polling shows this. I mean, look at like Bibi's support, how much it's grown from right after October 7th to now. If people were really true to what they believed, why would it even change that much, you know? Um, and we see public polling, even on the Palestinian side, changing from poll to poll in ways that are beyond the margin of error. So, environmental changes do cause drastic changes. I don't think if you have a situation where there's um, a massive improvement in the conditions of Gazans and Palestinians in general, and they just feel a sense of justice, that it won't drastically change how they view the other side. Again, this doesn't mean we don't need a security system in place. This doesn't mean we could have one government for all people. Like, there's certainly a healing process, but do we need like a denazification program? I don't think that's what we do need is an education system, right, that is hospitable towards peace and towards understanding the other side. We need this on both sides. So yeah. Let's see, where are we? Andre is asking, do you think Israel has lost the PR when the damage is done on the country? Can it change the narrative if Hamas is defeating completely? Well, definitely lost the PR war. That's for certain. And then somebody said we always lose it. Yeah, just a little bit about why I think we consistently lose the PR war. First of all, um, at least in the West, there's this kind of growing idea of like what colonizer colonizing brown people. And that's the lens in which many people see this conflict. So we're seen as the oppressor. So especially left-wing movements, they have a lot of sympathy for Palestinians because it it's seen as white person oppressing brown person. I think that certainly plays into it. The other is just numbers. So we have a lot of Israel has a lot of institutional power through media, through politics. The Democrats and Republicans don't agree on much, but they both agree for how much they love Israel. Um, but in terms of strength of number, you know, for every one Jew you have how many Muslims, right? So in terms of people promoting the cause, we can't compete. There's a lot more sympathy for the Palestinian side. Also, you know, people see pictures of dead babies. You know that has an impact. Like, no one wants to see dead babies, and there's been too many babies for most people to be okay with what Israel's doing. So yeah, I think that's probably, you know, those are probably the main reasons why we're ever going to win the PR war. Now, can defeating Hamas change how it's how this is remembered? A lot of it depends on what the outcome of it is. That's what I was saying earlier. Like, if there's a positive outcome, status quo change, or if this somehow leads to Palestinian statehood, or somehow an end to the conflict, then there, I don't say Israel will be entirely forgiven, but it will be much easier for people to be okay with Israel. If it just maintains the status quo like we've seen, or not a significant improvement to the status quo, then this will be one of the single darkest stain on Israel's history, without a doubt. Clear enough, intermittently choppy. Critical thinking over doctrine says, like your story, in your capacity for critical is your capacity for critical thinking linked to having been a troublemaker? Um, it's possible that there's certain psychological profiles that are high in, call it, like, have a rebellious nature and are also critical thinkers? Is it possible I possess that profile? Possible. Would I say that, um would I say that because I got in trouble is why I think through things critically? I don't think there's a causation there, but I think there might be a correlation that people who are troublemakers often, um, question question authority, question the official narrative. There's likely a correlation there. Um, yeah. I think there's probably other explanations for it. You know, both my parents grew up religious, and both of them became secular before they met each other. So if there's a gene for questioning authority, I think I probably got it. Um, and then also Jews come from a culture of debate. We're meant to think critically and challenge and dissect arguments. You know, we do this with, I don't want to get too much into stigmatizing us, but like the reason we make good attorneys, and we generally do well in fields that that involve thought and critical thinking, it's because for many generations we were arguing over texts and what they mean and looking for other angles. Like this has really been a part of Jewish culture for millennia. So it seemed to have had some. Probably we can attribute some of it to that. Does Israel media report on issue? And you know, with that, what's interesting is I do also consider Israelis, on average, to be some of the most brainwashed people in the world. So it's not that, you know, while I've given reason why we could see critical thinking, I don't like generalizing when it comes to ethnic groups. It's just such a tricky topic to talk about. But we do see a high rate of critical thought in Jewish populations, but we also see a very, with that, in another regard, we do see a very believe the official narrative, accept the official story. So I need to think through the psychology behind this. What's true is in times of war, people band together. Like you can be very critical of your government, but the moment you're being attacked by somebody else, we all band together. This is true across the board. So Israelis and call it their brainwashed nature is probably a result of being a nation in conflict and just a result of what the education system teaches us. Uh, I and with that, if we were to talk about Palestinians, I think they're also certainly above average brainwashed if we're comparing it to the global average. So hey, just another thing to have in common, something we could common ground on about how brainwashed we are. And maybe I'm looking for a better term because brainwash has such a negative connotation. I feel like I being a little offensive here. What better word for brainwashed? I don't know. Let me know in the chat. If not, I'll ask ChatGPT later. Damn. Is this just a bad viewing experience with this audio? Let me try. Let's revert back to the. It seems like uh, it's an internet thing, but let me know how the audio is now. If there's any significant difference, you might not hear me as clearly, but maybe it won't. Hubert goes, AOL internet had less lag. The good old days, AOL. Okay, indoctrination, Gerald. I think that's probably a better term. Nahum goes, they have a really defined worldview. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think, you know, it's important to like. I'm always trying to improve how I communicate, and it's really one of the most complicated conflicts to speak on. And so yeah, I really make an effort to not use triggering language, but I'm not perfect at that, obviously. So I'm hearing it's less clear, but the lagging is gone. Okay, looks like we'll need to find another solution. Actually, there's a mic on the floor. It just happens to be a mic on the floor. Hold on. Let's see if we can get this microphone going. Oh, no, look at that. It's broken. Damn. Okay, we needed a new cable at least next week. Slowly but surely. Slowly but surely. Imagination Scene says the Indian and Pakistan conflict is complex. True. The smog of Mike's reveal. Andre, I see you want to join the chat. I would just ask you to either turn your camera on or give yourself a profile picture just for the aesthetic. And once you do that, we will bring you on. So I guess in the meantime, I'm happy to share more about this new company that I just co-founded. I didn't think of the idea. It was Adam Boz-Becker, who is actually the first patron of this channel, reached out to me with this idea and essentially invited me to join him as a co-founder. But we're building a platform called Head On. It's a platform that connects people based on a topic of disagreement so they could talk about it. The conversation is then led by an AI facilitator with the goal of helping both sides speak longer, understand each other better, and hopefully reach common ground. Scaling civil discourse is not easy, especially when you need a moderator, because good moderation doesn't scale well. But if AI can do it, hopefully one day better than any human, then we feel like we can scale civil discourse in a way that truly has an impact. So that's Head On. The platform's almost ready for. We're going to do like an invite-only soft launch. But if anybody wants to test it out, if anybody wants to be involved in some way, whether you have some skill you think would be a good asset to the team, whether you want to be an intern, maybe you are an investor or know an investor, anyone who wants to be involved, feel free to reach out. You can find my contact information in the description. Andre, we're bringing you on.
Hey, Adar, can you hear me?
Yeah, we could hear you. How are you? Where are you calling in from, if you don't mind sharing?
I'm calling in from Sweden, actually.
Okay.
So far away, but yet so close now during the conflict.
Right,
We
yeah.
are connected in some way.
How's it going?
Yeah, everything's good. Just following the new development that's happened today. And I thought a bit we could go back to the subject of what will be now since Sinwar is gone. What will be the next future? What's happening in Gaza right now, you think?
Yeah. Happy to hear your thoughts.
Thanks, man. Happy to talk to you too. I love your work.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So what do you think this is going to change anything?
Personally, I think it might change the how do I say it? I think it may change the news, but I don't think it changed reality right now. I think we still have ongoing conflict, and I don't think taking one guy away from the power, it will only resolve in somebody new stepping in.
Right. Yeah. I guess time will tell how that will play out. But yeah, one leader gone doesn't change an ideology. It doesn't change a movement. It doesn't change a struggle. So
Yeah, and I think now I don't know what's going on the replacement, if Hamas is ready for the next chapter, or if it's going to go underground in the tunnels, or what will be the next step
Right.
for the organizations or the terrorists, whatever you want to call them.
So supposedly, Bibi made some speech today. I didn't listen to it, but he supposedly spoke directly to those holding hostages and said, "Return them to spare your life," something like that. Um, yeah, there's so much we can't know. Like, will Bibi be willing to end the war now that Sinwar's dead in order to get the hostages back, or is he still gonna be dedicated to continuing until there is no Hamas? Which, again, this could take years. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Gerald says there's 10,000 more Sinwars created during this war, probably. Yeah, that is an important point, that how many new terrorists were created, or just how many families were destroyed, causing people to see violence against Israel or resistance against Israel, however you want to frame it, as the only option they have left or the best option at their disposal. It's unclear. Um, it could have, it all depends on if there seems to be hope for a better future. So if this leads to a situation where there's some kind of a path to peace, then I'm not sure that it created another 10,000 Sinwars. It might do the opposite. It might have people say, you know what, we're tired of this fighting. Let's not fight anymore. It's possible. I'm not sure. It all depends on if people have something to work towards. What do you think, Andre?
It's a $1 million question. What will be? But I do see a future now that's pretty unclear, since basically one of the goals has been achieved. But what does this symbolize for the future to be? Like, are we going to continue the negotiations for the hostages, or is the hostages even on the agenda from the government now? It's a lot of questions that I don't know what will be.
Right. Where does your interest from the conflict come from?
I'm kind of born into the conflict, since I'm half Israeli. So I
Okay.
didn't have a choice in some way. But
Right.
yeah,
Okay. Your accent is not really Swedish. It's more so Israeli. Is that right?
yeah. I tend to change my accent when I speak to different people. I just had a conversations back in Israel, so I'm one of those who start to create an accent where I speak with who I'm speak with.
Mm. Yeah, that's it's code switching. I think we all do it to some extent. Um, I the first time I really noticed this, well, I noticed it within me by mistake. I was talking to a British guy. All of a sudden, I'm talking to him in a British accent. I was like 8 when this happened. I'm like, whoa, that was weird. Where'd that come from? And then in high school, uh, we had this Irish girl in our class, and she spoke perfect American English. And then I heard her on the phone talking to a friend, and she was just straight up Irish. I'm like, whoa. So yeah, we all do it. It's as highly advanced social animals. It's how we connect and fit in. You'll see sometimes Kamala, she's talking to like a black audience, and her voice changes quite drastically, a little bit more like, especially when it's like a Southern black audience, she has that like Southern black voice all of a sudden. And then people accuse her of just being fake, but I don't know. I think we all do it to an extent. So, yeah.
Yeah, speaking about the election coming up in America, uh, what do you see happening in Israel, and are they waiting for Trump to step in? Do they believe it will be better for their interests, or in general, like, what do you think Israelis right now see America providing them, or in some way cooperating with Israel in the future?
I think most Israelis prefer Trump. There's also polling on this, you know. I mean, Trump has been one of the most pro-Israel presidents ever, you know, like moving the capital to Jerusalem, recognizing the Golan Heights as part of Israel. He achieved the Abraham Accords. So it makes sense why Israelis would want him to be president. And honestly, credit where credit's due. Like he did a few things that no president before him attempted. Right. So first of all, the Abraham Accords was a great victory. Another one was meeting with Kim Jong-un. Like that was awesome that he did that. What is that war even like? What is our conflict with them even about anymore? Like we gotta find a way to help North Korea integrate into the world, and hopefully they moderate over time. But like, good for him. And shortly after, the North Kim Jong-un met with the South Korean president for, you know, that was the first time that the leaders of both countries met in decades, right? So he made some bold moves when it comes to world peace. One thing he did, which was seemingly negative, was he ended the Iran deal, which created some barrier to them getting nuclear capabilities. He kind of ripped that up and didn't do anything instead. He was kind of playing hardball with them. Maybe he had a longer term plan that he didn't get to play out, but that wasn't something that was so positive in terms of world peace. You know, it's interesting. My father, who is a right wing Israeli, he says Trump's a moron. He's like, I don't see how he's even relevant. He's like, he just comes out, he sounds dumb the way he speaks. He's shocked that he has any relevance. His mom, who passed away a few years ago, would say the same thing. She's like, how does anybody like Trump? But they would still prefer for him to win. So it's interesting how a lot of Israelis kind of see Trump differently. Like they don't recognize him to be a normal person or a good leader. Um, but again, you know, people in Israel are looking for what's best for them. So I thought it was interesting to see that how at least right wingers in my family don't have a high level of respect for him, but yet because they think he's better for Israel, they would prefer he wins.
Speaking of political spectrum, right wing, left wing, do you consider yourself being on the Israeli left, or do you have a general, like, you don't define yourself as either a lefty or a right wing or whatever you call it?
When it comes to when it comes to Israel Palestine stuff, it's hard. It's hard to not put me on the left. You know, I I I'm I identify with, you know, being actively dedicated to a peace process. I'm very critical of Israel when they go wrong. These are things that generally we're not seeing on the right. So it's hard to put me in any other category on the left. In fact, I'm probably more critical of Israel than the average Israeli lefty. And when it comes, let me be clear about something. Right wing Israelis are very critical of Israel. So are left wing Israelis. They're critical when it comes to internal issues. When it comes to external issues, we become very defensive, right? It's almost like you'll have somebody like, oh, my mom's such a bitch. But if somebody else calls your mom a bitch, you're like, whoa, 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 don't say that about my mom. So it's a similar psychology there that Israelis don't get very defensive when it comes to external criticism. But so in terms of me externally criticizing Israel on external issues, I'm more critical than the average Israeli lefty. Yeah. Now, but I look at things issue to issue. Like I have some views that are more right wing. Like I don't support mass immigration, or I support a people's right to um, decide who gets to immigrate into their country. I support the U.S. closing the southern border. I think countries are better when they can um, know who's coming in and control who's coming in. That just seems sensible. Um, Economics, I mean, I do think that we need to look out for those who are struggling to provide for themselves and their family. Um, let's say we need to look out for the least capable members of society. But at the same time, I don't trust big government. I think they're very wasteful. I'd like to see a lot of the bureaucracy automated. Um, I don't think more regulation is necessarily better. I think if we have any regulation, it should be to stop companies from harming the environment, to stop them from exploiting employees, and to stop big companies from monopolizing. But aside from that, I think like less regulation is better. Socially, I'm a libertarian, generally speaking, let people do what they want. Uh, End the war on drugs, even decriminalize drugs, treat addicts uh, as if it's a sickness and not addiction should be seen as a disease and not a crime. So again, what box do you want to put me in? It really depends. But at the same time, like I'm also not. I always vote third party, but I really don't care who wins this election. I could see benefit to both. Um, so on one hand, like more to the left of many Israelis when it comes in like the accountability I want for Israel and my critique of Israel and my dedication to the peace process. And sometimes my ideas can even be seen as idealistic and naive. But at the same time, I really wouldn't shed a tear if Trump's elected over Kamala or vice versa. I just won't. Is that surprising, Chad? Is anything I just said surprising? Andre, hold on 1 second. I need to get a charger. My phone's about to die, and that's what I'm streaming from. For those who don't know, the way I've been able to improve the video quality is by using the iPhone camera, which is better than the MacBook camera, believe it or not. Believe it or not. Are we good? I hope it charges. If not, we'll just revert back to the other audio. Okay. Yeah, what are you thinking, Andre?
No, I think you gave a good answer to the broad spectrum that nowadays we want to put everybody in the left or the right, the pro or the anti. I think you gave a answer that's maybe not the easiest answers to give, but things are more complicated than it seems. Uh, and I have a question for you because I do respect and I do think you speak about the critical aspects of Israel, that it's actually a good thing that you're able to do, because there are critical things in every country that you should speak about, even if you're a part of that tribe or whatever you call it. But did you ever experience problems going back home in Israel? Well, like in that aspect, like people in the airport or whatever?
No, haven't gotten any problems. So far, all the backlash I've gotten has been just online comments. What is possible is I wasn't called to reserves, and that very well might be because of ideology. Because my unit did. Last time I was in reserves, I expressed some opinions that made them upset, and I actually never got called to reserve since then. So it's possible I was relieved of reserve duty due to ideology. I also haven't said anything too damning. Like I'm maybe in the past few months, like I've been in the past few months, I've been the most critical I've ever been because we have an unprecedented situation. And I looked at the death toll. I looked at the civilian to combatant ratio. I looked at the infrastructural damage. I saw a lot of evidence of war crimes being committed, and I felt a moral obligation to say something. I've been talking about putting out this report. I was actually going to film it today, but I actually want to wait to see now what develops with Sinwar being killed, because I'm not going to put out this report to trash Israel for the sake of being trashed. I'm doing it because I want, um, if the operation in Gaza continues, then I will put it out. If it ends, then I'll hold off. So I don't have any reason to trash Israel for the sake of it. I do it because I see called strategic benefit. We can't fix a problem we don't acknowledge exists, So um, I think those who care about Israel should be leading the critique, not pretending like all good. And I also take it personally to see fellow Jews engaging in just the worst form of atrocity denialism. Like we should know better than anybody atrocity denialism and how that feels, and to see us doing it to such a great extent to the Palestinians and what they're experiencing in Gaza, it's troubling. So this is what's making me want to speak out on these issues and be very critical. And will there be backlash if I make, like, let's say, a viral video reporting on the war crimes in Gaza? Is it possible I'll be questioned in the airport? Yeah, I hope not, but I do recognize that as a risk I'm taking, but it's not going to stop me. So.
That's great to hear, Adar. You're doing great work, and I want to thank you for taking your time and sharing a lot of knowledge and wisdom to the people around you.
Thank you, Andre. It's been great having you on, and you're welcome back anytime if you ever have something you want to share or say. Um, I imagine before you hop off, how long have you been living in Sweden?
I basically grew up in Sweden and been living all my life, but I also been traveling and uh, every year almost to Israel.
Okay.
So I also have like I consider both to be homes of mine,
Right,
uh,
right.
and it's hard to be away while everything is happening, and to living in the Western world right now with all the madness. It's not only back in Israel. I think people are affected by the war in Israel, but by all the psychological things happening in the environment and the communities and the society. It's affecting you a lot in the Western world right now,
Right,
either
right.
if you're Palestinian or Israeli.
True, true. So are you getting, like, hate from people for being Israeli?
That's a tough question because it's not something that you see on anyone that easily.
Right.
I think that's the superpower or whatever you want to call it for Israelis, that you can't see that they were Israelis sometimes. Um,
Unless you're Israeli, and then you know right away.
exactly, that
Right.
we
Yeah.
can see in a different aspect. But I do believe the hate is a strong word, but I do believe people have turned their back just because of a background, or they just want to put your. If you're pro-Israel, doesn't mean for me personally that you're pro everything the state or the government of Israel do. It's that you support the people who's around you and your family, and it's a complicated situation. But I do believe people easily see people who supports one or the other as they support everything that side does, or every aspect of it.
Mhm.
So it's hard to, you have to, I feel like sometimes you have to explain yourself, and I don't like that.
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah. I feel something similar because I don't hide the fact that I'm Israeli, and then I feel inclined to share the work that I do because in their mind, I know that they might be thinking that I support what most Israelis support or think the way most Israelis think. So I feel something similar.
Yeah, I think we all
Yeah.
do in some way. And you lived almost half your life in America, or?
At this point, more, yeah, it was 14, 15 years in Israel. I'm 34, so what's that, like 17? What's that, 19 years? 19 years yeah, so more than half my life in the US. Yeah.
Wow, yeah. So I do think maybe living in the US as well, since it's a lot of Israelis, and
Why
it's
did
the
you see it? It just did a. That was weird. I was doing this and it popped up a little.
I missed it.
Uh,
But no, but considering, I think being an Israeli living in America, it's quite, you have your communities and you have Israelis around you in some way. I think living in Sweden, you become a big minority, and also we have a situation where a lot of people from other countries in the Middle East are the majority in Sweden. So you become a little bit not unwanted, but it becomes a hard situation to deal with, honestly.
right,
Uh,
right, yeah, understandably so. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your perspective and your experience in Sweden. I know Sweden's also going through some, call it societal tensions. Hopefully that eases up soon enough, and maybe this new app we're bringing can help bridge some divides in Sweden as well.
yeah, let's hope. And you just, as when you when you come to the point where you're developing your apps and it spreads around the world, you just let me know and we bring it to Sweden as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I will be promoting the hell out of it on this platform, so y'all will be hearing more about it.
The biggest support to you, Adar, and yeah, see you soon and speak. We'll speak again probably.
Thank you, man. Toda rabah. Cool. That was Andre. Thank you for joining. I think we'll wrap it up in a few minutes. Did you all see I spoke to Lonerbox yesterday? I joined his stream. For those who don't know Lonerbox, check him out. He does good content. Give him a follow. We spoke about some stuff. Floodland said, was Zach Corner called to reserves? Was he? Did he serve? I know he's in New York now, so I'm not sure. So Floodland goes, there was a 22.7% decrease in people ascending to Aliyah before tank skirmishes along the Lebanese border. There's been a brain drain of the brightest. I believe these trends will continue. Just so I understand the stat, that means 22% less people made Aliyah, or you had, or is their population decreasing? Although 22% sounds like it's going to be way too high of a decrease. And yeah, definitely a brain drain. I know some bright brains that have left Israel and aren't planning on returning. So yeah, there's going to be a long-term cost to the past year for sure. So Floodland is saying 22% less. So normally it's around 30,000. So what would that be, like 24,000 or something like that instead? So okay, but I wonder if more people left than came. Like, did Israel's population increase or decrease this year? Imagination scene. You got banned from Lonerbox's chat. What'd you do? What'd you do? Or is that victim blaming? You know, somebody comes to you and says that they got abused, and you say, "What'd you do?" It's quite offensive, but I feel like this isn't crossing that line, right? It's just being banned from chat. Are you a victim? Or are you a victimizer? Or both, right? Sometimes it's both. Often victimizers start off as victims. Floodlands asking, is your new company AI based? Yeah, it's a chat platform with an AI facilitator. So the idea is that people can talk about contentious issues in a way that's productive because the AI is going to guide them through a conversation. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Critical thinking over doctrine. What's happening with Israeli peace building organizations? They don't seem to be speaking out. I don't know. I haven't been following it. After October 7th, everyone's like banding together against the common enemy. It's possible they feel like now's not the time to be critical of Israel. But I don't know. They might be speaking out. I'm really unsure. I'm really unsure. But if you have more info on that, I'd be happy to Happy to see. Let's see if there's anything else. I think we're good. So you know how there was that report, there's that pretty horrific report about 65 doctors that served in Gaza, 44 of which say they saw children who were shot. So I initially on stream said, I'm skeptical about that report. On one hand, I mean, 44 people corroborating something, especially when they're like healthcare professionals, that's solid evidence. But the lack of photo evidence, right? When documenting a crime is as easy as taking a photo, and the crime is horrific as children being shot, and there's no documentation of that, that's a huge red flag. Yesterday, it was tweeted by an editor from the New York Times saying, we have a lot of photos and they were so gruesome we couldn't upload them. So that's interesting, gives the report credibility. The author of this report, I'm going to be speaking to him hopefully next week. I've been in touch with him via email. So that's going to be an interesting conversation. And look, if there's photos of many children shot, that should be turned into the ICC, right? Like that's something should be done with that. Imagination Station, you're saying the reason you were banned from chat was you were questioning what was known about the fire video. It wasn't even that serious, though, and no bad language. Is it possible you were like, it came off that you were trying to I don't know, I whatever, we don't need to get into it. I don't know the chat rules. I don't know his chat rules or what the infraction was, but there's way to talk about the fire video in a way that's insensitive. So maybe that's what was happening, and if you were just being critical, then I'm not sure that's the reason to get banned, but I hope you get reinstated. Floodlands asking, how's Tal? Good. He hasn't been on for a while. He has this new job doing truth telling, which is really his passion. The company he's working for, though, it does have a very clear pro-Israel lean. So I think he's kind of like, it's reined him in. I think he's limited now in what he can say. Which all good. I get it. When not everybody has the privilege of being able to say whatever they want whenever they want, at least on political issues, right? So I get it. FAFO Law goes, I also think it's a problem when the doctors say opinions as facts. For example, they say that the children were targeted intentionally, as if mistakes or accidents never happen in war. Yeah. If they're doctors, they should really just be reporting on what they saw and without putting an intention behind it. But the second, I mean, accidents happen, but the second you're seeing a certain number of children being shot, at that point, the chance of that being an accident decreases significantly. So accidents happen, but many of the same kind of accident, much more unlikely. So 44 doctors all seeing this is not a good sign. Ibn Saifi says, do you think ICC warrants will be issued soon? And what will the Israeli public reaction be? Will they even care? I don't know. I hope they are. I think we have enough evidence, both from October 7th and from Israel's response, to issue these warrants. There's war crimes that are being filmed and documented. There's a level of proportionality unlike which we've seen in recent history. If the international courts can't do something about this, then what even is their purpose? So I do hope that they issue warrants and that there's some accountability. The Israeli public very well might just think that this is anti-Semitism and that the world's against them. They don't have a high level of trust in these institutions. But I hope, honestly, I hope the ICC can put out a report so compelling that convinces Israelis that the IDF is not the most moral army in the world. Like this is an idea that I think is very dangerous. this viewing the IDF as this infallible military, or as close to infallible as possible, and they're the most moral army in the world. Like, it's so far from true, and it's important for us to come to terms with that reality. The sooner we can acknowledge that, the sooner we'll be able to make changes within the IDF to change this. So yeah. David Bow Wow says hi. He gets a certain green tag because he is a member of the channel. Thank you for being a member. If anybody wants to be a member, you could find, well, you could just click the join button, or you could find a link to the Patreon down below. Thanks for your support. We don't give benefits to members currently, so we're trying to work out a certain membership benefit program. But hey, you will get a nice little shout out if you ever say something in chat. Yeah, Imagination Scene says they were questioning intent when they saw numerous headshots. I think that's accurate. It at a certain point, it's very hard to just say this is an accident. Floodland says, I'm hearing that Iran has a nuclear bomb or is weeks away from having one. Doesn't this change the entire power dynamic in the Middle East? I'm not sure. It does it does make, it decreases the chance of direct conflict with Iran. They kind of have like, what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever, the word's not coming, but they have a threat, right? A very serious threat. If you attack us, we'll do this. Not that I think there's a high likelihood of them using nuclear weapons. It would be suicide for them, but it's that was a deterrent. It acts as a good deterrent against invading them. So yeah. Critical Thinking Over Doctrine asks, do you think descendants of Holocaust survivors can accept this? I believe this is in reference to the IDF not being the most moral army. I think so. Yeah, I think it's possible. It really all depends on where the information is coming from. If it's just an ICC ruling, maybe not, but who knows? I don't know exactly how these courts work, but imagine if part of the ruling is there's leniency if Israel agrees to do certain things, and one of them is acknowledge the war crimes they committed, right? If there's like a public acknowledgement on Israel's part, well, I think that would go a long way. So maybe that's part of the thing the court can request for leniency, or instead of issuing an arrest warrant. Or like, imagine if and again, I'm not super well informed on this issue, but imagine if the ICC says it's either an arrest warrant or reform the military in a way that this doesn't happen again and acknowledge wrongdoing. It'd be interesting, right? That's probably better than an arrest warrant, because putting somebody in, well, let's think about this. Putting someone in jail, I mean, accountability might go long. Hard to know. Hard to know. I'm not sure. Cool, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. This was awesome. We'll have a stream next week. Okay, a few more. Fine. I see some good questions coming in. Critical Thinking Over Doctrine. What if they say it's genocide? I'm not sure if the ICC rule on genocide. I know that's the ICJ that is doing that ruling. Yeah, that wouldn't be good if they rule on genocide. You would need to prove intent, though, so it's very hard to prove genocide. You would really need some evidence that there is a command from above to reduce the population or intentionally be killing Palestinian civilians, right? Let's say we somehow have evidence that there's a command from above saying it's we're targeting civilians because they need to learn a lesson, or it acts as a deterrent. If you have evidence like that, then I think it could be ruled as a genocide. But without that, I don't think it will be. But I think there's ample evidence for war crimes and crimes against humanity. So I think that's probably what the focus should be. Imagination Scene goes, the Scholars in Revel Middle East channel did a video on why sanctions on Iran might have backfired and led them to their current path. That's interesting. Feel free to drop a link. Very large force goes, Salam alaikum, assalamu. Dude, I can't read this form of assalamu alaikum. Oh, I could probably do this. Salam alaikum, assalamu alaikum. Isn't it meant to be salam alaikum and then the next person says alaikum assalam? But that's not what you're writing. You're writing something else. Then you go, wadi hamutahi. I don't even know if that's Arabic at this point. You're just trolling me, aren't you? Anyways, we'll wrap it up. Thank you all. See you next week. Much love.